Hello folks, welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at one of my favorite rifles. It's my BSA Majestic. First things first, the bolt has been removed. Chamber is empty. This rifle is safe to handle. Okay, so we've already looked at the bolt in one video. Here it is in its assembled form. BSA Majestic. All put back together. You notice this is the safety. It's in the firing position. Push it back down for the safe position. A little red plastic thingy. That is the cocking indicator. When that's up, the gun is cocked. It's push feed action. BSA's own design. Typical push feed. Got a plunger ejector there and a snap over type extractor here. But this one got quite a sizable bite on the extractor. So very positive extraction with this gun. That's what it looks like when it's back together again. You can see a little ramp on the back there. Just there's an angled pin which rides on a spring which is drilled into the bolt body, and that actually acts as a spring, allows the claw to pop over the rim of the cartridge, but also retains it in place. Very simple, very effective way of doing it. So there we go, there's the bolt. Let us put the bolt in, if I can do it one-handed. Oops. Oh, not doing very well here. There we go. So, yes, it's a BSA Majestic Featherweight Deluxe version. It's a very lightweight rifle, weighs about 6 pounds. And it's in 30-06. Well, you're probably thinking, oh, I bet that rifle kicks. Well, as a matter of fact, it doesn't. It's quite manageable. The recoil is quite manageable. Because at this end, we have a muzzle brake. It's BSA's own muzzle brake. It's called the BSA. The BSA muzzle brake. And you can see the slots in it, face backwards. So as the gas escapes, as a bullet passes through, the effect is to pull the rifle forwards to reduce the felt recoil. Works very well. The recoil on this rifle is not much more than a Lee Enfield 303, but it is loud. These things are very loud. You do not want to stand next door to this rifle when somebody's shooting it. Likewise, if you're shooting it, you have to wear earplugs, or your ears will ring for a day or more. Not good for you. Okay, a little bit of story about behind this rifle. I was looking for a hunting rifle. I hadn't been in Canada very long. I'd taken all my courses and what have you. Got my license. I was now ready to purchase a rifle, and I'd set my eyes on a Model 70 Winchester featherweight version, but I couldn't find one locally. But a friend suggested I visited a pawn shop, and that's P-A-W-N, by the way, and languishing in the corner was this rifle here, and it didn't look much like it does today. It was covered in silver reflective tape. It had bits of paint, and it had red tape wrapped around it. And it looked a bloody nightmare, like some demented teenager had it and put go faster stripes on it. But anyway, I didn't think much to it, but I did pick it up, and I thought, wow, this is very light. And I shouldered it, and it just came up beautifully, fitted me perfectly, and just felt so good in the hands. So anyway, did a deal with the pawn shop owner, took it away, At the time it had a very old Weaver 4x scope on the top, which was very dark and full of muck. Didn't give a very good sight picture, but I used it for one hunting season, put a deer in the freezer with it, and then started talking to people in the gun world locally, and they recommended somebody to me who could refinish the gun, fix it up. So I let him have it, and I told him to work on the stock, leave the action alone, which he did. The action was fine, didn't need any work done to it. The bore was nice and bright, the gun shot accurately. And he had it for about 2.5 years. I had a hell of a job getting it back. Sort of guy that likes to take his time and do a perfect job, and believe me, he did do a perfect job. It was fantastic. Fitted a new recoil pad. The original was rotten and crumbling, falling apart. Took out the white line spacer there. They were all the rage in the 50s and 60s, and I didn't like it, so took that off. Took off the pistol grip cap, replaced it with a dark hardwood cap. Took off the white line and took off the white diamond, which was pretty awful. Refinished the wood, smoothed it all down, took out quite a few dings. Oil finished, beautiful satin finish. Recut the checkering, beautiful checkering, nice and sharp. Just what you need. This is functional checkering. It's not like the pressed in checkering that you see on cheap guns. What else? Oh yeah, took out the front sling swivel, which wasn't very good. It was loose and there's not much wood there to hold it, so it was a bit of a bad deal. I replaced it with this barrel band type sling swivel, like a safari sling swivel. Works very well. But having an attachment to the barrel means you can't use the sling as a shooting aid, so it just has a simple leather strap type sling just to carry the rifle and for nothing else. Okay, what else can I say? Yes, a floor plate magazine. Holds 3 in the mag, 1 in the chamber. You just pop this out. It makes unloading very easy. Originally this was black, but it's also aluminum. And when the guy did the rifle, he took the paint off it there, and it did look tatty. It was scratched and gouged, and the silver showed through the black paint. And I thought long and hard about how to finish it. Of course, you can't blue them because it's aluminum. If you paint it, it's going to scratch again. So I just left it the way it was, and I've got used to it, and I quite like it, actually. Okay. So those are the main features. It has iron sights, fold down, pretty conventional foresight. I replaced the scope with a loophole. This is a 2:7 by 33. I think it's 33, something like that anyway. A compact scope, nice and small. With a lightweight rifle such as this, I didn't want a humongous scope that looked like a Zeppelin sitting on top of a matchstick. So I went with this loophole 2:7, and I love it. I think it's a good scope. It's getting on a few years. I've had the rifle, I don't know, 22, 23 years, and the scope's been on there for most of that. It was a Very X2 when I bought it. I had to think hard before I bought it. It was quite expensive. I don't know how high up the range it is now. I think there was one above it, the Very X3 at the time, but of course Leopold scopes are altogether different now to what they were 20 odd years ago. There's more variety now and that, but anyway, it still works, and it will work for a very long time to come. And I think it suits the rifle very well. Crank it up to 4 or 6 for shooting long distance across fields, and I crank it down to 2 for shooting in the timber. Works great. Can't fault it really. One point about this mounting is you have to use Parker Hale mounts because the top of the receiver is dovetailed. So nothing else will fit. Actually, yeah, let me think. CZ. I think a CZ will fit. With a little jiggery pokery. You have to alter them a little, but they will fit. Now, I have some original Parker Hales here. They're called Parker Hale roll-offs. There's 3 sizes. There's high, there's medium, which is on the rifle, oops, and there's lows. So I don't know if you can see the difference between the high and the low. Come on, focus, focus, focus. Anyway, you can see the mounting height. These are a little more heavyweight than these. They are RANS 3 is what the low ones are called, and I think the others are RANS 1 and RANS 2. I may be wrong, can't quite remember. You will find these from time to time on eBay. I bought these a few years ago just in case I ever needed any. They go for quite a price now. They were quite cheap at the time, but certainly well worth having the right thing. And one of them, I think it's the rear one, has this spigot on it here, there, which fits on the rear, and there's a hole in the receiver bridge there for that to go in. Which I don't think, if you use CZ ones, I don't think the CZ ones have that. Not entirely sure, but if you're using CZ, you might want to put a bit of Loctite on there, something like that. What else can I say about that? Not much really. That is the rifle. It's a very nice functional cheek pad on here, showing a few little dings and scratches, but that's just a product of its age. This rifle was made in roughly 1958, 1959. The Majestic was made from 58, I think, to 65. Then it changed to the Monarch, and then in the early 70s it changed to the CF2. The Monarchs are not quite as well finished as the Majestics. They don't have the engraving on the bolt like this one does. This is Majestic. They don't have that. I'm not sure if they did a Monarch Featherweight. The standard rifle is like this, but much bulkier, with a full wood rosewood tip to the fore end. The inside of this stock is hollowed out to save as much weight as possible, which isn't the case with the Monarchs and the standard Majestic. Also, I think on the CF2, which, like I said, came out in the early 70s, the safety had changed. The safety was on top of the trigger now and poked up through the wood. It wasn't on the bolt shroud like this one. Okay, talking about bolts. Now then, one feature of this rifle is the rather awkward way to remove the bolt, and a lot of people don't know how to do it, and I'll show you the way that works with this rifle. With the bolt closed, well, you can either close the bolt and hold the trigger back, in which case the gun is not cocked. Put your finger up there to feel the cocking indicator, or you can dry fire it if you wish. Depends on you. Now what you do is you squeeze the trigger back hard between thumb and forefinger, and then with your other hand you open the bolt, but you do not relax your grip. Once you've fired the gun, or once you've pulled that trigger back, hold it back tight, and then open the bolt in the normal way, and it will slide right out. The thing that holds it in is the sear has a little backstop on it, and you can hear it hitting the back of the sear. Now, when you pull the trigger and hold it, the sear drops down, allows the firing pin to go forward, and stays down by friction. So you have to hold on to that trigger and put pressure on it, and then it will keep the sear down. If you just release the pressure slightly, it will pop back up and will stop the bolt. So hang on to it, pull it out, and you'll have no problem. Took me a while to work that out, I tell you. But you have to close a bolt on a pulled trigger, or close a bolt, dry fire the gun, hold the trigger back, and then pull the bolt out. Quite easy, really. What else can I say? Not a lot, really. Not a lot. I mean, this rifle's a 1958. It's nice to put a small scope on it, or to put a correct scope for the era. This is a Leupold 4x scope, just a straight 4x that I bought at the gun show this spring. Didn't pay too much money for it. These aren't fashionable anymore. People love the higher magnification, 50mm at least objective lens. You don't need that. These work for years and years and years. They're fine. Leupold 4x. If anything ever goes wrong with it, you can return it to Leupold. They'll fix it for you. Lifetime guarantee. Can't go wrong. Looks better. Fits in with the timeline of the gun. What more could you want? I read a lot about scopes when I was first getting interested in rifles. When I first came to Canada, I read a lot of articles by a guy called Finn Agard, who was a professional hunter in Kenya. And then when the politics in Kenya changed, he moved to the United States and lived in Texas, where he wrote a lot of articles, and a guy who really knew what he was talking about, and he favored small scopes. The smaller the better, or no scope at all, just use open sights. But anyway, he favored small scopes, he favored Leupolds, and I took his advice, and I haven't regretted it. The guy knew what he was talking about. Like I said, this gun weighs about 6 pounds. You may think that's too light for a 30-06, but the muzzle brake, like I said, takes care of that. I prefer a small rifle, a light rifle. I've read quite a bit of Karamojo Bell, who hunted elephants at the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century in Africa. Killed over 1,700 elephants. Made himself a rich man through the use of his rifle. He favoured a 275 Rigby Mauser action. The reason he favoured that caliber was because of the quality of the ammunition. Remember, it was early days for the smokeless powders, and the German ammunition that he could get was extremely reliable. He tried all kinds of things. He tried large bore double barrels, he tried 303s, he tried 318s, he tried Mannlichers. But he went back to his 275 Rigbys, which were made by John Rigby. And another feature of his rifles, which he thought was very important, was the rifle was light and easy to carry. He didn't use a sling. He carried the gun in his hand all day. When he went on safari, he walked because there weren't any roads where he was going. There weren't many trucks, around around that time. Horses and what have you were too much of a pain, and so he he would walk everywhere. He used a pair of boots a month and had a huge safari with him, over 200 people at times, carrying the elephant meat and the ivory. But anyway, he favoured a light gun, one that you held in your hand all day, so it became an extension of your arm. You were used to the weight, and he would dry fire the gun a lot during the day. He would look at a tree, dry fire at the tree, what have you, spin around, take aim, and fire at something, dry firing, so that it became natural. It just became embedded in his brain. It became muscle memory, if you like. So he didn't think about using the gun. It was instinctive. And he thought that that was very important, to be able to do that. And I found that in a smaller, less ambitious way when I was having to shoot foxes on my farm in the west of Britain. They were a terrific problem with lambs. They would kill and maim a lot of lambs every year. To give you some idea of the scale, I used to shoot about 3 dozen foxes a year on a small 100-acre farm there. So we did have quite a problem. And I found through through experience that a small light gun was much better. I had a 22 Hornet. I couldn't shoot long distances. The fields were quite small. I had to shoot at night with a lamp because that's when the foxes were about. And it was just so much easier to carry a small, handy rifle around with me rather than a big, long-barreled rifle, having to climb over hedges, go through gates, and shooting in all positions, standing, kneeling, crouching, sitting sometimes if it wasn't too wet, but very often standing, following a fox in your scope until it got into a position where you could safely shoot it. So I got used to shooting offhand with a light rifle, and really, you can do the same with this 30-06. It's light enough to be able to do that kind of shooting. And I absolutely love it. So anyway, that is my BSA Majestic Featherweight, made in 1958. Not a rifle you see every day, but a very nice rifle, a very good rifle. If you get chance of purchasing one, I would do it. I wouldn't hesitate. I'd like to find one in 222. I think that would be a fantastic little rifle. I think it was available in most modern calibers from 222, 243, 270, 308, 30-06, 6.5 Swede, 7mm, Remington Magnum, all the way up to 458 Winchester in a lightweight version. Imagine that. I have seen one. I wasn't tempted to buy it. It was too much money for me at the time, but I would certainly like to shoot one and see how it compares to a 45-70. Anyway, that's my rifle. Thanks for watching the video. I'll see you next time. But in the meantime, have fun out there. Take care of yourselves. Look after one another. Bye for now.